Hi, it's Brody Escalera, and I'm doing my screencast for my Fruit Application API Part 2. So I'm just going to run through the PHP files real quick. This is the main Fruits PHP file, which would be the index file that would load up. And within that, I've got my HTML and my PHP that's referencing other PHP files that serve it JSON. So at the very top, I've got my PDO connect to my database. And then I've got a couple of file get contents that I'm using to get some information. The first one is for the ads. So it's in the fruit get PHP, which I'll go over. And then the second one was my attempt at making the update function work. Kind of got 50% there, but I still left the file and just output a JSON file and then updated some stuff within that. And then right here I've got my update and encode variables, which are taking the JSON from those external files and decoding them so that I can use them and run through the JSON object to display some stuff. Okay, so when the page first comes up, oops, and part 2 and Fruits PHP, boom. Okay, so here is the app. And when it first comes up, you can see it's got some fruit that are already here in the database. Up here is the add portion of the database, and if I hit refresh, it'll change, and it randomly selects. No, let's keep selecting the same one. As I refresh it, it'll randomly select a fruit that's in the database and make it the fruit of the day. And I can also go down in here and add strawberry and make it red. And then I already got this nice strawberry picture up here that I'm going to add to the database. And then go ahead and paste that there. And then hit submit, and then we should see the strawberry. There it is, strawberry red, and then there's the image right there with the ID and the delete function. The delete function also works, so if I click on this, I can delete my strawberry. And then let's go ahead and put that back in there real quick so I can show you something else that I did. Red, and the URL is still there, so okay, the strawberry's back there. And then my attempt at an update function, I wasn't able to break out each individual item the way I wanted to. I wanted to be able to click on this, turn these into input fields with the object in it, and then submit those all within this panel, but it quickly became over my head as far as my capabilities within PHP to do. I found some other ways to do it with JavaScript or jQuery, but I thought that really wasn't in the spirit of the assignment, so I just kind of stopped doing that and focused on making my application look a little bit better. But I do have an update function going on, so if you click on the update, I've got the fruit of the day is the black secret fruit, and a little guy saying shh, secret there. And what that did is it actually went in and through a MySQL statement and through a PHP file, updated that same ID number that had the strawberry in it with secret fruit black and then the image URL. So that's the overview of how the application works. Now let's get back over here into the PHP files. So when first connects, it's going to look for the request method post. I'm sorry. This is if you submit anything through these inputs over here, and when it posts them, it'll insert that into the database using this MySQL statement. I added the image URL and bound it within the statement here into the SQL statement to the post after I set the image URL to the post of the image within the input data, which is down here. So that's when you put the image URL within that input, hit submit, it'll look for this name, and then it'll set it equal to this variable, which will then be bound to this guy right here, and it'll input that value into the SQL database. Here I've got some basic HTML, and then I've got a for each loop, which is going to pull some information. So over here in my fruit get PHP, this is what's creating the add and randomly generating the input. So I've got a PDO connection again up here, and then I've got my statement, which is preparing my SQL statement. And here I've got the select ID, fruit name, fruit color, image from fruit table, and then order by random limit to 1. And when that executes, it takes the result, puts it back into an associative array, and then I'm taking that array and I'm setting that result to an array, and then taking that array and converting it into a JSON object, echoing out that JSON object within the PHP. So that fruit.gets PHP, if we go back here, is this guy right here. So content, file gets content, and then I've got a URL to the fruit get PHP. So it's basically taking that JSON object that's getting produced by this fruit gets, turning it into turning it into an object and setting this variable content equal to that object. Then down here, I'm taking another variable encoded and setting that equal to JSON decode that content. So it's taking that JSON object that's being passed to the URL into this variable, decoding it, and setting it into this variable. I guess I could have made that a little simpler, but it works. Now, what I'm doing is I take that encoded back down to my for each statement. So I'm taking that encoded object, or the decoded object really, and I'm running through the fruit table as fruit, and then taking the individual items within that object and pushing them out into these list items here. So I take the fruit table, fruit color, fruit name, and image, and then it runs through for everything within the fruit table that we're getting back, and it creates these list items. So in here I've got a organized list, and then each one of these things are an LI. Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me. Each one of these things right here are an LI, and it's running through for each, but there's really only one thing being returned, and then it generates it here. So I guess I could have multiples in there as well. All right, under here I've got a statement, select ID, fruit name, fruit color, and image from fruit. So this is not selecting at random and not limiting. It's selecting everything from that fruit table, bringing it back, putting it in an associative array, and setting that equal to results. And then down here I run a similar loop for the add to get these to display, which is the result as row, and then running through each one, row ID, fruit name, color, and setting those to list objects, and basically formatting these as I go. I've got a little bit of Font Awesome to make these icons, and I've got those within anchor tags so that there's actually an action when you do that. So that's the app. The only other thing I've got is the delete fruit, which basically does the same thing as my other external PHP. The only difference is this right here, where it's going to delete the fruit ID from the database, and then it dies. So it redirects back, and then this file dies. It doesn't actually echo anything out or create a file at all. All right, what else? That's pretty much it. Within my CSS, I'm just using Foundation and some Font Awesome, and then the delete fruit app is being referenced right here, and I'm just taking that row ID and setting that equal to a variable in the URL, and then pulling that in here by getting that variable from the URL and setting it equal to this variable here. Thanks. That's my app.